Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Finnish on the home side, half American on the away side. And out of these two breweries, it is only the Finnish one that's featured on the channel before. When it comes to them, I would say they're best known for their different kind of New England hazy IPAs, their fruity, juicy sours, and they have been doing some darker beers in recent times as well. But I've been impressed with the stuff that I've reviewed from them so far. When it comes to the American brewery, I've seen their cans around quite a wee bit in Copenhagen actually, and this is a brewery that I've been meaning to cover on the channel, but they seem to be kind of well known for similar things to the Finnish brewery actually. So I think this could make for a very interesting collaboration. But the beer itself is one of the latest releases from the Finnish brewery. It's a style that I know they can do very, very well. And it's also going to be the strongest beer, I think, within that style category that I've had from the brewery, actually. So it should hopefully be a really nice beer. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, like I said, we are going to head to Finland. We're going to go to Helsinki, the Finnish capital, and the district of Viiki to be specific. And that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Coolhead Brew. So this particular beer is called Victims of Our Own Creations. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this one is a New England hazy imperial triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So this one is brewed in collaboration with Adroit Theory, who are from a little place called Purcellville in Loudoun County in Virginia, kind of just to the northwest of DC a little bit. It looks like it might be an hour's drive or something like that. But yeah, as I say, this is a brewery I've seen around in Europe in recent times, and one that I have been meaning to cover actually. So yeah, this one should be really quite interesting to take a look at. My first encounter with Adroit Theory and Coolhead Brew are a brewery that I do know fairly well actually. They do some really good stuff. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. Since this is a Finnish beer, of course, this is one that actually arrived as part of the latest Riku box. So a massive shout out to Riku Sanaho once again, my Finnish beer mule, for making all these Finnish reviews on the channel possible, and I hope that you guys are enjoying them. But yeah, as always with my reviews though, I will tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Coolhead Brew before, and my future reviews that I'll do from Adroit Theory. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I've mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is hugely, hugely appreciated. And of course, remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. Put in your hometown, county, state, whatever, and this will let you find beers from your local area if I have reviewed them. And you can, of course, check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in both the Finnish playlist and the American playlist, since it is dual nationality. But yeah, let's go on then to my brewery notes and chat a little bit about Coolhead Brew and Adroit Theory. We'll start with Coolhead Brew, since they are the home brewery in this case. So, Coolhead Brew, as I've told you before, were originally based in Tuusula, which is about 30 kilometres to the north of Helsinki, the Finnish capital, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Kleber Gonçalves, who is originally from Brazil. But Kleber worked in the technology sector for a number of years, and this took him to work in England and then in Finland, where of course he stayed. But he started planning the brewery in 2013 and then officially established the company in 2014. But they managed to get the production up and running in February of 2016, and they've just been gradually building up the capacity of the brewery ever since. But today they employ about 8 people, maybe a little bit more than that now actually, and they're brewing around 180,000 litres of beer per year. But in early 2021 they announced that they will move to a new premises in Viiki, which is in eastern Helsinki, and this is actually a former tropical garden, and it was open to the public in stages as a brewery with a tap room and restaurant, and they serve pizza there as well. If you're interested to see what it looks like, you can have a look at my out and about video that I filmed there with Riku back in the summer of 2022. So definitely a place you want to visit if you find yourself in Helsinki. But these guys brew a lot of fruit beers, beers, sour beers, IPAs, and they've also been starting to do some barrel aging and things in recent times as well. But they're a very, very experimental brewery, very highly regarded within Finnish craft beer circles, quite rightly so in my opinion, but these guys are quite prolific, and as of November 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 350 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. The only thing I can think that might be a little bit inaccurate with that, with the notes that I've just kind of given you there, perhaps the volume figure might not be accurate. I'll need to look into that again, because I think the 180,000 litres might have been for 2021. So maybe they've expanded that over this year, of course. But like I say, a very well respected brewery. They've got an awesome kind of tap room brewery place. One of the most quirky ones that I've ever come across, actually. So if you get the chance to go to Helsinki, that is one place I really would recommend that you check out. But that's all I can really tell you about Coolhead Brew for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and you can of course check out the Untappd page to learn more about the different beers, or you can have a wee look at some of the reviews that I've done for you previously, but I've only covered a small fraction of the stuff that they've done. But yeah, let's go on to the American side of things then, and Adroit Theory. So Adroit Theory, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Purcellville in Virginia, and this company was founded by Mark and Nina Osborne back in 2014. So Mark actually comes from a background in economics, and he studied abroad in England, and while he was there, he got into drinking cask ale, and you know, this turned him on to trying different beers, and it just really showed him what beer could be, and this was where his whole love of beer started apparently. But when he returned home to the US, he started travelling to visit different breweries and attended different festivals and things like this, and he started planning the brewery in around 2011. But at this time there were only a few breweries in Virginia. I think it was about 20 or so that he mentioned in the interview that I watched, but he wanted to create the more adventurous beers because they really weren't available in his state at the time. But they had originally planned to call the brewery Antithesis or Antithesis Brewery, however we would enunciate that. But he found that a wine company out west somewhere had actually used this as their name, and so they decided to go with Adroit Theory, which means being, you know, good with your hands, skillful with your hands. But they started off with a very small one-barrel system. They hired Greg Scottsko as their head brewer, and the idea was just to produce lots of different beers, and they produced a hell of a lot just on this very small system over the first wee while. But in the early days, they also contract brewed a number of their beers at different locations. They were brewing some of their stuff down in Florida, from what I understand, but these days they're operating a 10 BBL system in-house, and they've also got an on-site tap room which has been open since the beginning. They've got 24 taps there that are constantly rotating, and of course you can buy their cans and things like that there as well. But as of November 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 255 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, but other sources I've read say that they've produced well over 1,000 unique beers. So I'm guessing when they were doing, you know, the one barrel thing, probably not everything was getting logged on Untappd actually. So yeah, I think it's only the last few years that Untappd has really kind of taken off. So it would not surprise me with Adroit Theory if that number is not correct. But there's 255 beers from these guys registered on Untappd. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Adroit Theory for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. As always, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Untappd page to learn more about the different beers. And you can look at some of my future reviews when we do more of them. The other thing to point out about Adroit Theory is that their artwork tends to be, you know, heavy metal themed actually. So that's another thing that had kind of caught my eye with this brewery. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a look at the beer itself. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is quite interesting, you know, kind of almost Frankenstein inspired. But at the top, you can see the two brewery symbols. So here you can see the sort of afro. Kleber, of course, from Coolhead has a very impressive afro. And you can see there is the Adroit Theory symbol there as well. But like I said to you, this beer is called Victims of Our Own Creations. It's a 10.5% New England triple IPA. Yeah, it tells you the different hops in this one. So this one is hopped with a few different things. It has Galaxy, from Australia, which we know that's about 14% alpha acid, strong passion fruit, good mango, and also a bit of pineapple. Motueka from New Zealand, about 8% alpha acid. That gives you a nice big oily limey character. The rest of the hops are all from the US. So we've got Citra in there, 14% alpha acid, big juicy mango, but also a kind of lemon limey note when you have it in a New England IPA. Mosaic, 14% alpha acid, again, big tangerine notes in my experience. Talus is quite an interesting one, quite bright pink grapefruit, but it also has that kind of coconutty note that you get from Sabro, of course. And then we have Centennial, and they're a bit more of an old school hop actually as well, but that's about 12% alpha acid, and it gives you some nice kind of lemony notes in my experience. So yeah, an impressive hop bill in this one, and I'm quite curious just to see what this is going to have in store for us. So yeah, victims of our own creation, 10.5% New England triple IPA, another beer from the Riku box. I think we're on Riku box number 3 or 4 now, I forget, but Riku always provides me with some awesome beers, and he said this one was pretty good. So let's see what this one is going to have in store for us. Yeah. Interestingly as well, I think this is the first time I've had a Coolhead beer in a 440 can. Normally they're in the little 330s. I don't know if they're changing that now actually, but yeah, usually from Coolhead Brew it's a 330 can that we get. But anyway, that's just another thing. So anyway, as you can see, this beer looks pretty interesting. It's actually one of the more kind of ambery leaning New Englands that I've come across over the last wee while. But anyway, before the head disappears, you can see this one's poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. I think we've got about 75% of the beer into the glass at this time, but you can see the head on this one, kind of smaller bubbles there, but a few medium-sized ones going further up. But yeah, you've got this lovely kind of rich ambery colour to this one, but 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look very, very nice actually. So yeah, in terms of the colour of this one, it does look, it's pretty good. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put into the beer will of course affect the colour too, but when it comes to IPAs, you don't really have to care about that. That's not something that happens very, very often. But yeah, this one reminds me of a more kind of mixed tropical fruit juice. It's certainly got a kind of darker and richer colour to it actually. So I do like how that goes together. But yeah, it does look very, very nice. It does look very nice, this one, I have to say. But I do wonder if this is going to have a little bit more sweetness to it. And when it's 10.5% triple, you might expect it to. Just from the colour of the malts, there's something that tells me there might be a wee bit of caramel or carapils or something like that in here, but it should be good. Not much in the way of visible carbonation, just 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look pretty nice. The other thing I would say about this one is that it's certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that I've come across, but remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast. But yeah, that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. So there's no real rule about how much haze you should have depending on the style, of course. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see what we have. I think we've said everything we need to about the appearance, but very curious about this beer. So let's do this. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this one's going to be quite an oaty leaning New England IPA, I think. As I've always said, there are 6 different elements you should think about in a New England IPA. So this is the yeasty character, the farmhousey yeasty notes, the rye leaning grainy side of things too. Those tend to be a bit more prominent in American brewed New England IPAs in my experience. But then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweet side of things. These are the 6 elements you should look for in a New England IPA, and of course they all lean different ways. This one for me, I think this is going to be quite an oaty leaning one. But you can smell a bit of the wheat in there too, so I've got a feeling about that. But aroma-wise, this one, it's quite wet, it's quite juicy, you've got a nice big floral green component, and as I say, to me, it leans toward the oaty side of things. But let's break the aroma down that little bit more and just see what we can get. So yeah, backbone of the beer, you can absolutely smell a little bit of that fresh, white bready bread crust. That is forming the backbone of this beer, no question about that. On top of that, you've got some nice, dense and thick white bread in there, which I do have to admit I really do quite like with this one. Yeah. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, thick, quite dense but still fluffy and airy white bread. And then on top of that, you can certainly smell the wheat. I think the wheat is doing two things in this. At the back of the nose, you get a little bit of the bitiness from the wheat, but you can also smell the wheat just kind of like smoothing out the middle of the nose in this beer as well. Actually, I'm curious. I'm going to be curious to see how this one, how this beer's aroma compares to its flavour. Actually, got a feeling this one might be a little bit different in the flavour from the aroma. But on top of the wheat, you can smell some of the nice creamy oats in this one. And interestingly, the oats, of course, you can smell a little bit of dryness from the oats, and as I've always said, oaty character is usually a good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is going to be. The drier the oats are, the slightly older it is, the creamier they are, the fresher it is. And this one, I think, is, I don't know how old exactly this beer is, but I'm sure Riku said it was pretty fresh. It will be a couple of weeks old though, since for because it's journeyed here to Sweden. But this one, you do get a mix of creaminess out of the oats. You do get a little touch of dryness in there as well. And on top of that, there is a good little bit of kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type character too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is pretty damn nice. So it gets a big thumbs up to me on the malty side of things. When it comes to the hoppy side of the beer though, let's have a wee look at this. The green component, the more that I smell of this beer, it really starts to lean a little bit more toward the it does start to lean a little bit more toward the kind of grassy side of things. Like when I first smelled it, it was really quite floral and quite, kind of in your face a little bit. But yeah, it really has quite a nice grassiness to it as well. Yeah, the green component, there's a little touch of earthiness in there, which I would suspect would be from the mosaic. There is a little bit of floral character, but yeah, the more that I smell of this one, it leans toward a kind of smooth, oily, grassy type character actually. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. On the fruity side of things, there's a lot going on with this one, but if you know these hops, you can pick the things out. So you're certainly getting some of that kind of bright pink grapefruit from the talus in this one. It's really nice. Lots of juicy. The pink grapefruit almost gives the beer a little bit of a kind of medicinally kind of dry thing. So that's quite interesting. So yeah, definitely a little bit of that from the talus. You've also got some really nice, you do get a little bit of the brighter passion fruit in there as well, some big oily juicy mango. But yeah, it's very nice. There's a lot of fruit to this one. It leans more toward the tropical fruit, I would say, this beer. So yeah, there's pink grapefruit in there. There's a quite oily mango. That's going to be coming both from the Galaxy and from the Citra in this one, I would say. And then yeah, you've got some apricot and some papayas and stuff underneath. I think that's more likely to come from the Citra, to be honest with you. But then yeah, you've also got a bit of pineapple, and for me, that's more Galaxy than Citra, I would say. But the more that you smell of the beer, the more I think the Motueka comes out a little bit more, because for me there's you do get that nice oily lime, and at the front of the nose you can get a wee bit of the lemon from the Centennial as well. So the Motueka and the Centennial are doing quite an interesting thing here. Centennial is a little bit brighter and a bit more punchy, I think, whereas Motueka I've always found is a little bit more kind of oily, and of course Equinaut would be the American equivalent of Motueka probably, but it's higher alpha acid and it's a bit more brighter and punchy. But yeah, Motueka gives you that lovely oily, limey character. But then on top of the of that, you do get a little bit of the tangerine orange from the mosaic in this one. But I think the Motueka is a little bit more I think the Motueka is a little bit more kind of dominant when it comes to the citrusy side of things. So this beer actually has quite a nice balance between the more citrusy side with the lime, the lemon, and the tangerine from the Motueka, Centennial, and Mosaic. Actually, but then yeah, you've got the tropical things coming from the Talus, the Citra, and the Galaxy. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting actually when we taste it. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the aroma of this beer. But really, it's quite an oaty and oily, fruity Leaning New England IPA, this one for me. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time and enjoy the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them. But I think it is about time that we try this one now. So yeah, let's do this. Very curious to try this. So yeah, this is the Victims of Our Own Creations, a 10.5% New England triple IPA brewed by Coolhead Brew in Viiki, Helsinki in Finland, in collaboration with Adroit Theory from Purcellville, Loudoun County, Virginia, over in the US. Let's get stuck in, and thank you again to Riku for making this review possible. Slàinte, skål, cheers, keep peace. Oh yeah, that's really nice actually. It's got quite an interesting impact flavour. In the beginning, this one's really quite sweet, and it's starting to sweeten up again the further into the aftertaste you go. You know, it's weird. I kind of suspected it might do something like that because of the colour. Because, you know, when you've got a darker colour like this, usually you've got some kind of malt in there that's a bit sweeter, a bit more brown sugary. But you don't pick up that much of that in the aroma, and it's funny I said that as well. You know, I had a feeling that this beer might be a wee bit different when we tasted it in comparison to what we were getting from the aroma. So yeah, I think I've been proved right with this one. But this is, I'm going to say straight away, this is very, very nice. So let's kind of do as we always do and break it down a little bit. But for me, a very sweet, creamy and nice, juicy, fruity New England IPA. This one, it's very nicely done. So yeah, this is good. I'll say as well, it's not the thickest of New England triples that I've come across. It's actually kind of very, it's in some ways it's actually very light and clean. It's dangerously drinkable, this one. And it doesn't give itself away as being a triple IPA that much. So yeah, this is the interesting thing. This one drinks actually like a, in some ways it drinks like a single IPA, but it's like a very sweet single New England IPA. So it's a wee bit dangerous in that sense. But yeah, let's break this beer down and just describe it a bit more in depth for you then. So, middle of your palate with this one then, middle of your tongue, you can feel the backbone of this beer. Absolutely, you've got a little bit of that fresh white bread crust that you always get, so you can feel that there, and that gets a little bit more grainy and dry the further into the aftertaste that you go. But when you move forward on that middle third of your palate, you start to get a little touch of woodiness out of this one. There is definitely some of that in there. So yeah, nice little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. On top of that, you have the fresh, you know, you've actually got quite a layer of like crisp white bread in there. And then as you push further forward on that, you start to get the woody notes as we've mentioned. Above that, there is another layer of like a very airy and light white bready character in there. It's like quite an airy, light white bready note you get out of this one. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in that regard, I think, is really, really quite nice. Yeah, so grainy bread crust in there. Yeah, grainy bread crust. Fresh white bread. Sort of a more crisp white bread, then a more airy, light white bread, and then on top of that, you can feel, you do get a kind of smoother layer and a slightly more dense layer of white bread again, and I think that'll be the wheat. That'll be the wheat thickening this one out. I just want to check that there is actually wheat in this beer. Does it say? Yeah, it does. Oh, this one's actually got lactose in it as well. I didn't realise that. So, not a good beer if you're a lactard in this case, I have to say. But I wouldn't have noticed. I have to say with this one, I would not have noticed that this beer had lactose in it from the flavour. I wouldn't have picked that up. But maybe I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it feels quite light in the mouthfeel. But yeah, as I say, above that layer, you do get that more dense, wheaty character out of this one, but it's very smoothening. Then on top of that, you start to get the oats. So yeah, I like how this goes together. So, down the middle line of your palate then, Yeah, down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of creamy oaty note out of it. But as you push further out, as you push further out to the sides of your palate there, you can feel it's got a little bit of dryness actually. So yeah, you've got that nice kind of oaty, creamy character in there down the middle, and then it just dries out a wee bit as you go further out to your palate there. So this beer, this is one of these beers that's showing you everything you expect from this style. And just doing it well. I mean, there are so many New England hazies out there these days, it's very difficult to be kind of blown away or surprised by the style. I like this one though. This one does. It does give me what I would want from the style. But on top of the oaty side of things, there's a little circle in the middle of your palate there. So you've got that sweet kind of just kind of brown sugary note in this one. So if you go to the dead centre of your palate, it's maybe got a little bit of a straight up caramel, but very quickly when you move further out from that, you start to get more of a kind of Werther's Original, butter candy, butterscotchy type thing. So yeah. So yeah, straight up sweet caramel there, bit more of a kind of butterscotchy, butter candy type thing. And then as you move further out from that, you get a wee bit of a more McVitie's digestive biscuity character out of the beer as well. So yeah, it's interesting how this goes together. You do get a little bit of booziness, like you get a bit of boozy bite out of this beer further into the aftertaste that you go as well. So yeah, maybe in some ways in the malt base it could do with just a little bit more thickness. You know, you could maybe put a little bit more oat in this one to kind of cover that out just a wee bit more, but because it's a very light, it's quite dangerously drinkable, this beer actually. It drinks like it does drink like a single IPA. It's got the flavour profile of a triple IPA. You can feel that it's kind of sweet and it's big, but yeah, it maybe just needs a little bit of a thicker mouthfeel in the middle of the palate. I think we could say that about this one. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the flavour in the middle third of the palate. Let's go to the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, kind of nice white bready character, a little touch grainy, but then the base of the back third of the palate, in there, you've got that nice kind of more grainy bread crusty character. You've got that grainy kind of bread crusty character in there, and then so you've got that grainy kind of bread crusty character in there again. Then on top of that, you've got a little bit of a more, you can feel that more kind of crisp white bready character I was talking about in the middle third of your palate. You can feel that's there. It's slightly taller and it feels a bit more dense. And then above that, you've got the more kind of light, airy sort of brown bready character as well. The light airy white bready character, I should say. It's not brown bread. That's bad. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. Yeah, and then above all of that, you can feel the wheat comes in on top of that, and the wheat actually has a bit of bitiness. The wheat actually shows you a little bit of a more bitey character on the back of that, on the back third of your palate. So yeah, bread crust, crisp white bread, more airy, fluffy white bread, and then you've got a bit of a wheaty bitiness on top of that. Above all of that, of course, you start to get some of the more kind of airy, yeasty sort of things coming out of this one. So you've got that nice lighter white bread in there, which is good. So yeah, you've got that really nice airy white bread character in this one. It's kind of like farmhousey, and it's almost got a little bit of a kind of honeycomb flavour up there in the back of the palate as well, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, that airy, crackery, woody, farmhousey bread with a little bit of honeycomb, and yeah, that sits above the kind of wheaty bitiness on the back third of the palate. But as I always say, the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward, the flavour just kind of condenses down that wee bit and squashes together, and then yeah, you've got the kind of more malty flavours in the middle of the palate there. The yeast is contributing a lot more to the back third of the palate. But yeah, let's look at the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of the palate and green component first, you do get that nice little bit of earthiness in there. You can feel that, and I guess that's probably coming from the mosaic. Mosaic can give you a good little bit of earthiness in there. But as you move further forward, you start to get a little bit of herbal character And as you push further forward to the front corners of the palate, it definitely gets a little bit more kind of floral and spicy, but round the front curve of the tongue, definitely lighter and grassy, and it's a bit more of a kind of wet mouth feel that you get out of the beer in this case. So yeah, green component in this one is quite interesting. One thing to remember though, 3 different types of hoppings. Early edition hopping gives you mostly your bitterness. Early edition hopping is within the first hour of the wort boil, gives you mainly your bitterness. Late edition hopping, last half hour of the wort boil, a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which is after the wort boil, and that gives you, that gives you all flavour and aroma. I get the feeling that this beer has a bit of early edition in it, because you can feel that depth and sort of dankness to the green character. But usually with New England IPAs, they rely mainly on late edition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3, which is why they are more bitter and dank. At least they were in the old days. Or back in the good old days, I should say. I feel old now. But yeah, the green component of this one definitely indicates, for me at least, a little bit of early edition hopping. But let's focus on the front third of the palate and the kind of fruity side of things then. So yeah, front third of your palate, you've got that nice kind of the border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get a little bit of that nice kind of dense white bready build up there. The base of the front third of the palate is more kind of smooth and white bready as well. So yeah, definitely getting some of that coming out there, which is nice. And on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And I will say the fruity side of this beer is pretty much kind of what I was thinking it would be from the aroma. So at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of that strong pungent grapefruit from the talus, but you're also getting a regular kind of grapefruit, which I would guess it comes probably from the citra rather than anything else. But when you move slightly further forward of that, you start to get the passion, the kind of lighter passion fruit from the citra and the galaxy. Then you start to get you get a lovely kind of, there's quite a big oily mango character to this one, which again is going to be your citra and galaxy giving you that. And as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of you do have a little bit of you do have a wee touch of that apricot papaya dry tropical fruit thing in there, but above that you've got a nice juicy kind of pineapple. And I think it's mostly I think the citra is the one that's going to give you the drier fruits, but then the galaxy is going to give you the kind of pineapple-y qualities. But then as soon as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, the front half of the front third of your palate, then you start to get the more citrusy notes out of this beer, and you can feel that Motueka, you get that big oily limey character there, and that dominates the base of that kind of front sixth, the front third of your the front half of the front third of your palate. It dominates there, so you get the kind of Centennial comes out just behind the front tip of your tongue, and it sort of amplifies a bit of the grassiness and the zestiness in the beer. So yeah, Motueka and Centennial are sitting underneath, but you have some of the orangey tangerine notes from the Mosaic sitting on top of that. And I think that the tangerine orange comes out a wee bit more the further you go into the aftertaste with this one. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think this beer has been really, really nicely done. The fruity character in this for me, and the way the sweetness kind of goes in with that. That's the feature. That's the highlight of this beer for me, is just how you've got the malty sweetness, and you've also got the nice kind of sweet characters in there as well. I think everything goes together very, very well in this beer. I really like how this beer goes together. Yeah, flavour wise, it's I can't fault this one at all. I really like it. So I think we can round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. Yeah, I mean, flavour wise, I think mouthfeel wise for me, it's one of the lighter New England triples that I've come across. I've got a really nice, yeah, I'd say, what would we say about this? It's kind of top end of mid body to bottom end of full bodied. I think that's fair to say. We have a little bit of bitterness to this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this beer is about 50 IBUs. I think that's fair to say. Yeah, about 50 IBUs in this one. We've got a nice malt base in it as well. So yeah, we've got a nice malt base in this one. I'm just thinking about this mouthfeel. As I say, it's kind of got me thinking a little bit. So 50 IBUs in this beer. The mouthfeel overall is quite smooth. It's got a little bit of creaminess to it, but at the same time it's quite clean. The malt base is very, very smooth, as we said, but there's a good bit of sweetness in there. The green component, this one is leaning toward the floral notes. It gets a bit spicier the further into the aftertaste you go. There's a wee touch of zestiness there as well. And overall, the fruity character for me is quite oily. You've got a mix of kind of citrusy and zesty notes, but you've also got a little bit of you do also have a little bit of that more kind of you've got oily zesty notes, but you've also got some smoother tropical character to this beer as well. I really like how this one goes together. It's a really nice, in terms of its flavour profile, very, very nice New England triple IPA, but like I say, it could potentially do with just a wee bit of thickening up with a wee bit more oat or something like that in the middle of the palate. So yeah, really, really solid beer, this one. I really enjoyed this one. And I have to say, big thumbs up to both Coolhead and Adroit Theory. So yeah, I know that Coolhead do some really good IPAs. This is my first encounter with Adroit Theory, and it does make me want to try a few of their other things. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Victims of Our Own Creations, a 10.5% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Coolhead in Viiki in Helsinki, and Adroit Theory in Purcellville in Virginia over in the US. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both of these breweries as well, and we will no doubt return to them in the near future. But until the next time, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, keep peace, and kiitos.